All right, so what's going on, family? Today we're going to talk about this post on Reddit. You guys can see it. China just canceled 12,000 metric tons of U.S. pork shipments. Hopefully the pork farmers in America are prepared to endure the loss of this money because China is not playing. Welcome everyone to the channel. Before I get started in this reaction of this article, of these comments from people on Reddit, if you all appreciate my videos, the things that I say, make sure you guys hit that like button, share, subscribe for also more of this content as we endure and travail through the market of opinions as to what's going on in the economy, stocks, finance, money, whatever the case may be. Whatever is the hot topic of the day, we're going to try to come in and see if we can parse through the opinions of the people who drop their comments on the news. So let's go ahead and look at this first. So here's the article right here. One of the things I wanted to point out to you on the article, which was written by The Hill, is right here, is at the bottom of the article. I don't think a lot of people saw this. So I wanted to show you that China is not playing, okay? Right here. After the tariff hikes, China inked 2 agricultural trade agreements with Spain for, you guessed it, pork and cherries, as Beijing looks to strengthen relations with European countries. This is what Reuters reported. So you can already see the isolation being created for the United States. China was prepared for this. China has been preparing itself for this day. It is the United States who hasn't been prepared for this tariff war. U.S. pork imports are now facing 172% tariff, the U.S. Meat Export Federation said, according to Bloomberg News. So while America is trying to be the bully in the world, China's going around being friendly to the other nations and like, look, don't worry about America. We can actually go ahead and create our own trade agreements, you and I both, and let's start strengthening the relations, because as we can tell now, we cannot depend on the United States. Crazy, isn't it? So let's go ahead and look at some of these comments that these Redditors posted to this article. Let's look at this first one. So as predicted, Trump throws a tantrum, China shrugs and just buys from someone else. Just ask the soybean farmers who are still recovering. And if these soybean farmers were the ones who voted for Trump, they're going to try to keep hope alive and say, well, you know, Trump is one of the greatest business negotiators in the world and the planet. Let's ride this thing out and see what happens, when in the end, they'll be the ones who will be asked out. They will be the ones who has been severely hurt, lost their farms, lost money, and yet and still they will still raise their hands up and say, I will still vote for Trump, even though he's the one that caused all of the hardships in your life. Let's look at this next comment. Somebody wrote, I just listened to a long interview with a leading U.S. soybean farmer who obviously voted for Trump. They're just running on pure hopium at this point, saying Trump's a genius negotiator and, quote, well, we'll have to wait and see what happens. That is not a great negotiator. A great negotiator, a genius, has already etched out a plan. They have a starting point of where they are at now, and they have a goal as to where they want to obtain, or at least what they want to get out of the negotiation. Given the scenario between America and China, you can see already that Trump has no plan. And this is the man who has the economy of America in the grasp of his hand right now. And he has no plan. So if you are being impacted by the tariffs and China is canceling their agreements with America and you've been impacted, you have nobody to blame but Trump, because he wants to show himself as a bully. He wants to try to convince the world that tariffs is the way to go. And China is doing the opposite. They're showing the world that you don't want to go down this route. You want to try to avoid tariffs because tariffs aren't good for nobody. Well, if you want to break away from relationships and the allies that you created, then yeah, you want to go down the tariff road, which Trump did. He went down that road and he has destroyed the credibility of the United States. Other countries, other nations are now going around creating their own trade agreements, which is going to isolate America. So those who are living on this land called the United States, you need to get prepared for the next 3 years, maybe even longer, that what we have been accustomed to, it's not going to be the same. It's going to be different. So now is the time to get prepared for the worst case scenario. Don't expect the leader of the United States to come in and save you, because he won't. Let's go ahead and look at some of the other comments. Next one. This means China recently signed a trade agreement with some other country and no longer need to import U.S. pork. Same with beef. Same with soybeans. Somebody responded to that comment. Are you telling me that they lined up an alternative first before they cut off their supply? That doesn't make sense though. Wouldn't it be more art of the dealish if they just cut off their supply first, suddenly at 3 a.m. on Twitter? Like, isn't that the genius way to do this? Is to cut off your supply and then go out and try to find a new supplier? Because that's pretty much what that comment is saying. That's what Trump did. He went ahead and cut off the supply with China. And now he's asked out and he needs to find another country to import pork and soybean and beef. So he needs to find another alternative, but China didn't do that. China has already gone out and created trade agreements with other nations to resupply the pork that America was bringing to them, to resupply the soybeans that America was bringing to them. You see how this thing works? Let's look at the next comment then. If this doesn't perfectly capture what a vote for Trump gets you, I don't know what else will. Most of these producers are likely 3-time Trump supporters, especially knowing it's Iowa, rural Minnesota, North Carolina, and Illinois as the hog heavens. With everything they endured during the first term and the promises of what he'll do this term, they still voted for him. Now, they're going to be left with nothing but piles and piles of shit for their votes. I mean, what can you say? You just shrug your shoulder and turn around and move on. Everyone had opportunity to choose who they wanted to be in the office for the next 4 years. And he just barely got through. And now this is what those people who voted for him will have to deal with. In response to that comment, somebody wrote, try watching Fox News. As a non-American, I am fascinated about U.S. politicians and their reasoning. I watch Fox News, CNN, and AP News to get the right side, left side, and neutral perspective of news. Fox News just pretend all this stuff is not happening. And the average viewer there still thinks their votes were right. Only way I see real change is when things are plainly obvious. It's impossible to hide from, which is 1, the stock market, 2, all everyday items going up in price, like the example of eggs in the United States, but they are literally everything. That is probably the only thing that will wake them up. Now, what this comment is going in is telling us about propaganda. If Fox News simply tries to turn a blind eye, they don't want you to see all of the negativity that Trump has instilled in the United States since he came into office. They won't try to talk about it. They will try to only look at the positive things that he has done. When you see any news organization that takes news and points it in one direction and not in multiple ways, you already know that they're trying to propagandize you. They don't want you to get what is really going on in the economy, which is what this comment is going on to say. The only way that ordinary people, even those on Fox News and all of the other right-wing media, and not necessarily those on the left-wing media, they will, until it hits or knocks on their front door, that something blaring is obvious, like the stock market. And then 2, when things in these stores become empty and the shelves no longer hold product, then you'll begin to see those Fox News people begin to protest begin to be a little bit more active in their social media content, going against Trump. And then that's when Trump will cave. That is when Trump will go ahead and pull back and say, I must have messed up somewhere. Because my constituents, the people who follow me, they too are also telling me I need to get my act together. Because if I don't, then I won't be he can get back into office because this is his second term. But his reputation will just completely be tarnished if it hasn't been already. He definitely doesn't want to tarnish his image in the eyes of the people who seemingly thinks he can do no wrong. And once that trigger hits, it's over for Trump. So let's look at the next commenting. And then farmers will need more farm subsidies to make up for all the stuff China's not buying. Hey, dumbasses, yes, this is what you voted for. This happened last time too, in case you forgot. Now, what we're talking about with that word subsidies? Well, we're talking about government tax breaks or government assistance. That's what we need. Or shall I say, this is what the pork farmers are going to need. They're going to look to Trump. All right, Trump, you went ahead and you started this tariff war, right? Well, that tariff war that you started is now impacting my farm. And now I need some federal assistance. I need some money from the federal government to keep me afloat. Because if I don't get that money, guess what's going to happen to my business? Guess what's going to happen to my family? Guess what's going to happen to me? I won't have any money to support myself. So now, Trump, you're in the driver's seat of this thing. I need you to turn this thing around, park this vehicle in front of a bank, go in there and get me some federal loans so that I can make sure that my business is staying up. That is what's going to happen. But sad part is that Trump is not in position to increase the federal debt. The Republican Party are the ones who are trying to, bring down the debt. But with this tariff war going on, and if he wants to keep the economy, the business sector in America viable and vibrant, then he's going to have to drop the bag. He's going to help these people out. We'll see if that happens. And then here, the next comment in response. Trump next month. And I bought down the price of pork in the United States. When pork probably more than likely will go up. This will be my last comment right here. This really illustrates that the stuff China imports from the United States, largely food things, can be sourced from other suppliers at short notice. Think about that. While it might cause some turbulence in the market for soybeans, or in this case, pork, the market will adjust quickly enough. That's one side of this tariff war. Look at the second side. Meanwhile, the stuff that the United States imports from China, consumer electronics and rare earth minerals, cannot easily be replaced at short notice. The production capacity for them simply doesn't exist elsewhere right now and would take years to establish, as well as cost vast amounts of money in terms of capital expenditure. Think about it. This game that China has clearly looked like it's winning, they saw this decades ago. They said, hey, y'all, look, America's over here. They're trying to outsource a lot of the manufacturing. China's like, all right, cool. All we have to do is become the hub of manufacturing, and we will have them exactly where we want them. They will have to come to us because, as that comment stated, there's no other place on the planet that is able to manufacture as efficiently and effectively and at low cost as China right now. You don't think the United States government decades ago did not think about it? Or were they more concerned with consumerism and allowing the people in America to buy all that they wanted at a cheap and reasonable price? Was it all about greed in America? Because now when you have somebody like Trump sitting in office and he comes in and goes rogue on tariffs on the nations, you begin to see like, snap, Okay, we went ahead and increased tariffs here, but we have no other place to get our product from. So now you're asked out. Now you're looking like, what we're going to do next. But China, on the other hand, it doesn't have to go out to other nations and say, hey, we need some electronics. Oh, we can't get it nowhere else. Oh, we can actually. Matter of fact, it's in-house. We ourselves can manufacture our own electronics because we do it in-house. Well, what about soybeans and pork? Oh, that's easy. Because farming is relatively easy in today's time. A lot of people have massive amounts of land that farms, that they plant goods and vegetables and raise poultry and pork and beef. That's relatively easy to create trade agreements from that perspective. But when you have consumer electronics like iPhones and computers and chips, you have to think about where we're going to get these parts from. If you're not creating these parts, components in-house, then it has to come from somebody else. And if you destroy that relationship with that other entity, the other nation that you had an agreement with, you probably should have sought for a replacement first, which in this scenario we see that Trump did not do. And I don't think he's going to win this. And he's going to have to bend at the knee of China. He's going to have to come bowing down to China. Now, he's not going to come out publicly and say that because he's so narcissistic in his mentality that he wants to be seen as the victor in this tariff war. China is going to play Trump right where he wants them to be. He don't know he getting played. Trump getting played. And China is in no hurry to pull back on tariffs. It's not in no hurry. Rather than them being in a hurry to come and negotiate with America, you can see from the Hill, they've already gone out creating other trade agreements. When Trump, on the other hand, increased tariffs on everybody else in the nation, trying to force those nations to come back to him and say, Trump, what you want us to do? And that's not happening. That's not happening. Look at the news. If you want to get one perspective, then just pay attention to what Trump is tweeting out, because he'll tell you that everybody's coming back. But you're not seeing that from any other sources. You're not seeing it. And some of the things that I've read and seen, they were like, it's going to take years to implement any new tariffs, any new trade agreements. It's not going to happen in 90 days as what Trump is trying to make it seem it will be. So this is not going to go well outside of Trump completely pulling back on all tariffs that he places on all these countries. Give me your thoughts. Make sure you maintain profit. And as always, trade different.